and welcome back to the Digital Rundown podcast. My name's Alexis, and I'm joined here with my co-host Anthony.
Hey guys.
On today's episode, we wanted to kick it off with a fun little Would You Rather game that we put together. These are going to be fun, kind of work-related type questions, but I think it'll still be difficult for us to choose between some of them.
And do we have a timer for it?
Oh, set the timer.
Let's do this. Let's set the timer.
Okay, for this game of Would You Rather, we are going to do kind of a rapid fire. So we're going to put 5 minutes on the clock and pretty much draw and answer as many as we can in that time period. So let's go ahead. We have our timer here. We're going to get it started. And Anthony, would you like to draw the first question?
Absolutely. So, would you rather run an ad with an embarrassing copy error for a week or create a strategy for and manage a campaign that totally flopped?
Oh, that's a tough one. Honestly, I think I'm gonna go with run the ad with a copy error. Um,
Yeah, me too, to be honest.
yeah, I feel like that does a little bit less damage and it's something that is fixable and you could still see return on versus
Yeah,
one that just didn't perform well.
correct. Yeah, like less money wasted.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Next question. Would you rather explain every optimization you make to your boss or explain your job to your grandmother? I'm going to go. I think I would rather just explain my job to my grandmother. I think she would just enjoy, talking to me. And even
Aw.
if she doesn't understand, doesn't matter. I think she would really like it. What about you?
Yeah, I think I would go with explain it to my grandmother too, because like you said, even if she doesn't understand it, at least it's not a constant thing.
Right. And let's face it, the less time we speak to our bosses, the better.
Oh boy.
Just kidding.
Okay, I'm gonna do the next one.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Would you rather manage a campaign that has a small budget but fantastic assets, so like images, videos, copy, or work on a campaign that has a large budget but terrible assets?
I would rather take the one with the larger budget and terrible assets because I don't know, you have more room to test things. And to be honest, in experience, sometimes the least expected creatives are the ones that do the best. So maybe at first you'd think they're bad, but maybe they're actually the best thing that could happen in your marketing career. So
Yeah, I agree. I would also go with the larger budget but worse assets. A lot of times budget restraints kind of choke out campaigns. So you could have the best assets in the world, but if you don't have enough budget to spend on it, they're just not going to perform at the end of the day. At least with a big budget, there's wiggle room to make it work or not. Let's see how many minutes we have. Oh, we got 2 minutes. Oh no. I pulled out a couple. Okay. Oh, would you rather work on a project you hate that performs well or on a project you love that flops?
I would rather work on a project that does well and I hate. And I would work on myself, I guess, to make myself not hate it as much. Yeah, And I feel like usually it's like at the start that you hate things, and then over time, when you start seeing success and start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, you just start liking it, and sometimes even liking the people that you work with.
True. See, I would actually go the opposite way on that one. I would rather work on something that I really love, even if it's not successful, just because I would feel more like satisfied as a person.
Yeah, I guess yours, yeah, like your choice is more about like having like emotional health, I guess.
Exactly. Mine's
Like
about mental health.
mental health. Yeah, mine is more like I'll deal with mental health after. Like, when I'm a mess, like I'll just fix myself somehow. All right, I'll do the next one. So, would you rather accidentally run an ad that's going to the wrong landing page for a month or send an embarrassing email to your coworkers? I'll go with the embarrassing email to my coworkers because who cares about them anyways, right?
Yeah, there's no money behind an email. I would rather do that than to spend my clients or my company's money on the wrong
And hey, now we're working from home, so like you don't have to deal with them.
Yeah, you don't have to walk into the office and actually see them after you send it. All right, let's see if we get one more in. Uh, okay, would you rather work for a company where you have to make all the assets yourself or work for a company who gives you all the assets but they're terrible?
Oh my God, the both are terrible choices. Sorry, terrible options. I would rather go with the one that, I would rather learn how to make my own
Oh, that's
creatives.
time.
Oh,
Time's going off. All right, so learn to make your own creatives. Let me just answer this one really quick before we move on. I would rather work for the company that gives me the terrible assets.
okay. And then you just blame them like, sorry, your ad set is terrible.
Just blame them or maybe make a few edits myself.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So should we just finish it?
Oh, let's just answer this one because I really like this one. Okay. Would you rather have to work with a dial up connection for a week or have to work on a project with your office enemy? I feel like there's people out there that don't even know what dial up internet was like.
Well, that's just really slow. Really, really
Yeah.
slow.
And it made that fun noise when you connected to it, like the.
It's like internet via telephone lines,
Yeah.
right? Not cable or fiber optic. Yeah, definitely work with the enemy, like the coworker I don't like. Yeah, just work on my liking other people and doing an effort, I guess.
You're so much about like development. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll take the slow internet speed for a week because what if that project goes on for 6 months?
Yeah, I guess.
All right. I think that's good. That was a fun one to end on. For today's episode, we wanted to talk about all things freelance work, how to get started in it, what our opinions are, some pros and cons, things along those lines. So, Anthony, would you like to kick it off for us?
Absolutely. So, did you know that more people than ever see freelancing as a long-term career path these days? According to the sixth annual Freelancing in America study done by Upwork and Freelancers Union. So the study found that many people view freelancing as a long-term career choice, and since 2014, the number of those saying they're freelancing long-term increased from 18.5 million to 28.5 million. That's an increase of 10 million in only 6 years. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild. I could totally see it though. I think especially too in the last couple years with COVID, it's kind of changed the way people view work. A lot of people got laid off or furloughed for all this time and decided that they wanted to be their own boss and take things into their own hands. So I think that that's definitely, something I could see.
And the wildest thing is that this study was from 2019. So I bet the data for this same study, if it was done now, it would be completely different.
Oh yeah, it'd probably be much higher.
Right, due to COVID. Today, as Alexis mentioned, we're talking about freelancing and our experiences with it as digital marketers. So, Alexis, in your experience as a digital marketer, do you think you can make a living freelancing?
Well, the interesting thing about freelancing and us kind of speaking about it is that we both have experience in it. I've been doing freelance work for about a year now, so I'm still fairly new to it. Anthony, you've been doing it for 2 years now?
Um, actually, I started right when the pandemic started, so
Yeah, so about two
so
years.
about 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I think kind of makes us a little bit qualified to speak on it, and I think it's something that we both really enjoy. I do think it's possible to make a living off of freelance work, but it's not easy. You have to hustle.
And you have to have a strategy, just like,
Yeah.
any digital marketer will know about strategy. You have to strategize on how to make a living out of it too.
Yeah, because when you think about it, you're working, with either directly with clients or you're working with an agency and you're managing multiple clients for that agency. So it's definitely doable, but I think to get enough work to make it, a full living, you're going to have to hustle at it for sure.
And you'll find that it's also very seasonal. There's going to be times in the year that you're going to be really busy. For example, during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday hype. And there's times that you're going to be slower. It's going to be less, you're going to have less work.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Seasonality is a huge thing that you have to take into consideration as well. Like you mentioned during Black Friday, Q4, even leading up to Q4, so part of Q3, you're probably going to have a lot more business coming at you than you would in Q1, where everyone, finished spending and now they're pulling back and, ramping up for the next year. So definitely a lot of seasonality to it. So, Anthony, what was it about freelancing that made you want to start that and get into that?
Well, I think that's a funny story. So I had a job before COVID. I was a full-time employee, and when the pandemic started, I decided to move to Mexico. I bought a house and renovated it to have like a place to live and also a vacation rental. And I moved there and decided to work remotely there because of COVID made that possible. And then I was working remotely from Mexico, and then I guess the HR department in the company that I was working for did not like that. They said that I had to be working from my home in Florida for it to be allowed. So I didn't like that. At the time, there was no vaccines, and there was the situation of COVID in Florida was really bad. So I chose not to do that, and then I quit my job because of that. And then I found myself looking for a job in Mexico. So guess what was the best option for me? Freelancing. And was I, specifically looking for freelancing at the time? No, but it worked for me beautifully. And here I am. I've been working full time as a freelancer for almost 2 years. And yeah, so that's my story. That's how I got into freelancing.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how did you go about finding your first freelance gig? What tools did you use? How did you go through that process?
So I used Upwork and just browsed around and applied to a bunch of them. I created a personal website using Google Sites, and also using MailChimp. I was able to create like a little portfolio where I can show some of my work, and I had some screenshots of reports and numbers so that people could see that I was talking about real numbers. I was not just making it up. And I started applying, and at Upwork, you have to like write a cover letter with your resume. And in my cover letter, you see, the link to my website. So yeah, so just finding ways, like definitely, I would say the main things, and me finding my first gig was like creating a personal website, like a portfolio, and applying to a lot of gigs on Upwork.
Yeah. I started freelancing this year, just as a way to make extra money on the side and to get more experience in different industries and types of digital marketing. And Upwork has definitely been the best place I found to find those types of jobs. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of listings on Upwork for jobs that where the clients, let's just say it this way, they have a little bit of unrealistic expectations. And
Yeah.
you can tell that reading the job post. Or they want a unicorn marketer who can do it all, right? They can write copy, they can edit video, edit photos, do SEO, do search, do display, everything. And in marketing, there are so many different aspects of it. And that's why I call them unicorns. And then some people on Upwork who just, they want a unicorn and they want to pay $10 an hour for it.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
Yeah, so Upwork has been great and it's allowed me a lot of opportunities, but it definitely takes a lot of, I think, sifting through the jobs and
Yeah.
really actually reading them and paying attention to what they're asking for to just like before you even decide if you want to apply for it.
And they also take a chunk of money out of your pay. Well, I mean, during the time that you use the platform to be employed or to work for your employer. And I mean, honestly, I think is very justifiable. The amount that they take, I believe, is like 20% at first, right? But the amazing opportunities that you can get from the platform makes it worth it 100%. So just know that they're going to take a chunk of your money, but know that it's the price that you pay to have access to such amazing opportunities. And like when you see a gig, you can also see information about the person hiring. You can, oh, the company, right? Like, is it an agency? Is it a client that you will be working directly? Is how many stars they have, how much money they have paid in total. You can see very important information for you. I mean, if you consider that important for you, but
Yeah, I paid for the paid version of Upwork, and it was totally worth the money. I forgot what it was a month, but it wasn't an astronomical fee. And it was interesting because you could see, for example, how many people applied for the gig. You could see the pay rate people were putting when they were applying.
wow.
So you could tell if you were lowballing yourself on the pay scale or if, people were all putting a higher rate than you thought the position was worth and you really wanted to get it, you knew that you could come in at a little bit of a lower, more reasonable rate, and most likely you were going to get the email back.
That's
So
awesome. I
yeah,
didn't know you could do that.
yeah, the paid version of Upwork, totally worth it in my opinion if you are
Nice.
serious about freelancing. And it's probably a fee that I can write off of my taxes
There you
next
go.
year. So that'll be nice.
There you go. I like that. Anything to like, you know me, anything to save on taxes and save money. Sign me up.
Yeah. So Anthony, since you have the most freelance experience, what have been some of the interview processes that you've gone through? Have they been easy? Have they been in depth? What has been your experience?
Well, the first gig that I landed, the guy was super nice. I still work for him. I could tell that he read my cover letter. Like I could tell like he was ready to talk to me and kind of like personalize his questions to me, or to my skill set. It's I would say it's not that much different from applying for a W-2 job. Like they still ask you, what is your background? How much experience do you have doing this? Have you done it before at all? Like what kind of clients do you have? So like, well, at least that was the experience with the first one. And then others have been very like they recently I had an interview and it went like over an hour. Like we were just talking and like basically bonding. We were talking about, yeah, like so many things and like, even like he was asking for examples of situations like in which I made a mistake, what I did about it and how I went about fixing the mistake and that kind of thing. So I would say not that much different from a regular job, but I would still suggest, read the job description very well and try to learn as much about the company or agency as much as you can. Sure.
Yeah, I've done a couple interviews for freelance gigs, and like you said, a lot of them are very similar as they would be to kind of a job, full-time job in person. I did have one though that was very, very in depth. So the first interview was about an hour long, and this guy grilled me
Wow.
on like everything there is to know about like paid social, Facebook, Google, my background, my experience, everything like that. So had that interview and then he said, "Okay, the next interview is going to be another like hour long interview and I want you to put together a case study for me."
Wow.
Yeah,
Sounds like college.
yeah, so I had to put together an entire presentation on a case study on a problem I had in one of my campaigns and how I solved that problem.
Wow.
Yeah, but I ended up getting the job, so I guess I did a good case study.
That's awesome. Good for
Yeah,
you.
but something to keep in mind too is that as you're doing freelance work or working in the company that you are now, to start gathering just data and information. Obviously, don't break any, privacy rules or anything, confidentiality agreements, but start noting down, challenges you face and how you've overcame those and projects that you've worked on and areas where you've significantly improved performance because I think that'll definitely help you out and help you stand out when you're doing an interview because that's information that these types of companies and agencies and clients want to see. How you overcame obstacles, how you've increased revenue or increased performance, areas where maybe you struggled. I like to be upfront with them. If I don't know something, I'm going to say, well, I don't know this. I'm willing to learn it, but this is not, my area of specialty.
Well, there seems to be a trend for sure that people hiring for these gigs, they like to know what difficulties, what obstacles you have had to overcome. So, like Alexis said, write it down, and don't forget about it, and like keep it ready because sometimes you're gonna have to talk about them. Sometimes you're gonna have to write it in your cover letter or in a case study, apparently. So yes, difficulties. Write it down and don't be afraid. Don't be um like self-conscious of it. Just, as long as you have a solution for it or a way to fix things, I think you should be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Anthony, when you started, freelancing, were there any surprises that came up to you or any times that you felt maybe you weren't qualified or you fluffed your confidentials a little too much?
100%. Yes. I was qualified for the job for sure. I My background at the time was 100% lead generation clients, lead generation campaigns. So, and then I started this gig with this client, and it was all about return on ad spend and checkouts initiated. To me, that was all new. Like, I did not know much about it. And it was like, just Google, just like YouTube, and like paying attention. And like if the agent, like if you work for an agency and they have training materials, use them. In my case, they didn't have any. So it was all Google and YouTube. And luckily, e-commerce, actually the Facebook platform is built for e-commerce. So there's so much information out there for you to learn the metrics, how to analyze things, and how to learn different strategies for success. But yes, it was definitely a surprise. I had to learn so many new ways to report, so many new ways to analyze data. It was very different from what I knew.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So me and Anthony, we have a pretty similar background. We worked together at our first real, digital marketing gig. Anthony did work in email marketing before
Mhm.
that job that we worked together, but so we both came from a very super heavy lead gen background. We knew how to do what we did very well, but we could only do one thing.
Right.
So I have the same. That was like a surprise for me when I got my first uh freelance gig. Was they're like, "Okay, can you report on your ROAS and how much ad spend was brought in and this and that?" And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, I think I even messaged Anthony and I was like, "I'm not sure what this metric is."
Oh
But,
my god.
you learn, and at the end of the day, the concepts are the same. It's just a little bit different metrics that you're looking at, but the tools and the knowledge that you have can be applied to any type of marketing at the end of the day. And you wanna hear a funny story? So this isn't about freelance work, but just a funny story in general about fluffing resumes.
Yeah, tell me.
So, if you tuned into our last episode of the Digital Rundown podcast, we were talking about things to teach a new marketer. And I mentioned the way I got into marketing was I was looking for anything that had marketing in the job title. So, my friend needed someone to take over her position because she was moving out of the country. It was a marketing secretary position. So, that was my marketing experience. So, when I interviewed for my next job after that, I obviously fluffed that marketing experience to make it, sound a lot better so I could get this job. And I guess I did a really good job fluffing my experience because I got hired and I was so excited. And I remember I went to my first day of training and my trainer was teaching me all these stuffs, talking about metrics and ads and assets. And I remember going and sitting back at my desk after the first day of training, and I texted my mom and I said, "I think I screwed up."
That was full. That was.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
god.
said, "I think I screwed up and I fluffed my resume a little bit too much."
I actually had the same experience. Like, and we had the same trainer, right?
Yes, I think we did.
Oh my god, yes. But you know what? Fake it till you make it. Always
100%.
pays off.
Fake it till you make it and speak with confidence in these interviews. Speak with confidence. That's something I can't stress enough, especially as someone who interviews people. If you come to me and you speak with confidence, I'm going to have a totally different opinion on you than if, you seem like timid and unsure of what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yes, fake it till you make it
Well,
all
that's a
day.
great story. Oh my gosh. Like, and you were like, I think I'm in the wrong place at that
Yeah,
time.
I literally texted my mom and I was like, I think I screwed up.
I felt like that for weeks actually. It took a long time for me to like feel confident in there. But it's like a painful process. But I think after any painful process that you go through, you learn so much and you get stronger. And like then you can get an even more difficult job or like an even more difficult gig. So pays off 100%.
Absolutely.
So, talking about freelancing, do you recommend quitting your job and going all freelance, or do you think there should be a more gradual transition?
So obviously that depends on your situation. In my opinion, if it were me, I would go ahead and I would do the more gradual transition. Like I said, you need a lot more jobs and a lot more gigs to make substantial income from it, if that makes sense. I mean, you can pull in pretty good money working only 3 gigs depending on the type of contracts or negotiations that you have done with the clients or the agencies, but it's gonna take a lot, I feel like, to get to probably what your current salary is, depending on your position. But I would say to make it easier on you financially, just make the gradual transition, get a couple clients under your belt, get a couple gigs under your belt, and then go from there.
I would say, yeah, yeah, your answer is 100% right. Like, it depends on your situation. At the time, like, can you do it? Like, do you feel confident that you will be able to pull it off? I'm like, look at your financial situation. Like, can you do it? Like, at the time, I just got into a fight with human resources and I didn't like the outcome of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm leaving. But at the time, it made sense for me to do it. Like, I had other sources of income and I was thinking about, considering freelancing work for the future to get more experience and other sources of money. And it worked out. But if I had to choose, like, if I didn't get into that fight with HR, basically obligating me to go back to a place I didn't want to be at, I would have probably done it in a more gradual way. But I learned so much doing it, you know,
Yeah, you just dove right in.
just dove right in. Yeah. So I got my first client, and then 2 weeks I had two more clients, and then in the next month I was working with four clients, and I was making more money than I was making on my W-2 job, and I was working 20 hours a week. So I was working half as much and making just the same amount of money. So I don't know. It paid off for me,
Yeah.
and I think it can pay off for any of you if you do a lot of research and prepare and listen more to this podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely doable. Don't get me wrong. It's hard work. You're not going to go in and it be roses and daisies. I mean, you're essentially working from your for yourself. You're becoming your own brand and you got to hustle when you work for yourself. So,
And you'll find that it pays off. You'll see that the hourly rate and as a W-2 employee is a lot less than, you as as an independent contractor. So it definitely pays off.
yeah. So we've gone over a couple of the good things about freelancing, right?
Mhm.
What are some of the downsides to
So
it?
I would say downsides, or like the biggest one for me, is that the income fluctuates. And like we talked at the beginning, right? This thing is seasonal. There's going to be times of the year that you're going to be busier with more work, and other times that you're not going to be as busy. You're going to lose clients, not because of your performance, but because they probably can't afford you at that month. You know what I mean? They need a little break for their marketing spending. So that's for me, like the fluctuation in income. You can prepare for it. Like you can work your life around it. For example, the low season can be the season where you take vacations and you spend more time on yourself and with your family. And then the high peak season, that's where you work the hardest and you focus more and you invest more into your career. At least that's how I try to do it. And it's going really well for me.
The fluctuations is hard, especially because sometimes you might get an email one day and it's like, if you're working with an agency, the agency might be like, well, the client decided they don't want to put money behind paid anymore. So you're losing that client, which means you're not going to be making as much. So I think kind of the volatility of it,
Yeah.
you could do the best work on it, but then at the end of the day, if the client needs to pull budget, it's probably going to come from marketing. I would say for me too, another downside was just keeping myself organized. When I started freelancing, it was just kind of I took on one gig to, get a little bit of side money, a little bit of spending money, and I was like, wow, I really, enjoy this. And I kept applying for jobs on Upwork. And then next thing you know, I got hired on with two more agencies at the same time. And all of a sudden, it just started becoming a lot of emails or a lot of ad accounts tied to my personal Facebook account. And I was getting nervous and I was like, I need to, put a little separation between my personal life and, the agency work, so I should have planned this out a little bit better before, but I didn't. So I ended up making a marketing specific email to communicate with the agencies. And I made another Facebook profile to use to manage all of the ad accounts so it wasn't tied to my personal one. But I had started talking to these agencies with a different email and, managing with a different Facebook. So it was a little bit of like a transition, getting them to switch the email they messaged me on and to switch the ad accounts that my profile was listed on and things like that. So I think just getting myself organized because I wasn't ready for how quickly I grew in freelance.
I have the exact same problem and I have not transitioned at all. I'm still talking to my clients with my personal email and I you have no idea how many times I have to delete emails from Facebook saying how much the account has spent that day. You know what I mean? Or keeping track of that. Yes, it's you definitely need to be organized and find a way. And if you can organize beforehand, that's even better. Like get your own dedicated email address. So now that we're talking about being organized for freelancing, like, do you think it's a must manage and track your time in freelance work, Alexis?
I do. Even if you are on a agreement with a client, maybe you're on a retainer or it's a flat fee, I think you should always be tracking your work and your time. For one, to know if that flat fee is still profitable to you. That way you're not on maybe a low flat fee where you're putting in hours on hours of work. And I think it's also good just to keep yourself organized and to hold yourself accountable too. If you go on and you look and say, oh, wow, I've only tracked, 3 hours this week, maybe I need to sit down and put some work in on these campaigns. So, yeah, I think you should always track your time. And sometimes, maybe if you have a client that you don't really get along with and they're saying, we don't know if this fee is fair to them, you could go back and say, well, here's my time tracking. I worked on this project for this long. I did this task for this long. I think it's always good just to have your bases covered. Always track your time.
That's a good idea. Do you use a platform specific for tracking your time?
Yeah, so I use Toggle. It's a free platform. You can organize it by project or by client. It literally has a little start button and it times it for you, and you stop and then you make notes of what you did. Or if you forgot to time it, you can go in and just manually enter your time. And the way you download it, it's really easy. It downloads as a CSV file. So you can download it, pivot table it, sum it, calculate it, whatever you need to do for your clients. And then they also have like an overview view where it just shows you how many hours work on like a little bar, and then you worked this for this client, this for that, and that for that. So I thought it was a really easy free platform to use.
I love Toggle. I use it too. Has it ever happened to you that you let it run overnight and then you come back the next day and you have like
Absolutely.
25 hours? I'm like, great, I'm gonna make a killing out of that.
Yeah, it's like I wish that was my actual hours, but no. And that's a great thing with Toggle. If you do forget to turn off your timer, it's really easy to just go in and correct your time on it.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. You need to track your time. And like Alexa said, you need to be calculating how much time you're putting like per hour, right? Like if you are on a retainer rate, you need to calculate how much money you're getting per hour to know if it's worth it for you to have that client, or if you should be looking for new clients, or if you need to negotiate your retainer rate. And also obviously if you work hourly, with more reason you need to be tracking your time. And as more that you can segment it, and as much as you can break it down per client or project, the better. I know it might be a little annoying to have to like get into the specifics of things and take more of your time, but it in the end is worth it for the reporting and all the information that you can have. And like Alexa said, like you have your base covered in case there was any questions about, your work and how much work you're putting into a project.
Yeah, and I think that we've used a lot of terminology like clients and agencies, and we haven't really kind of explained the difference between those. So, for our listeners and our viewers out there, when you hear us say agencies, it's when you're usually working with a marketing agency who hires you on and then you manage the clients for them. So they might be an agency with 6 different clients and you manage some of those clients. But you also have the ability to work with businesses directly, right?
Mhm.
So small business XYZ might need a marketer to do their marketing. And instead of working for the agency and having that middleman, you can just work with the client directly.
Absolutely. Most of my experience is working with an agency, so I don't really get to interact with the client, like the actual company. and it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. I prefer doing it the agency route. I think it gives you that little buffer between the client,
Mhm.
and I think it gives you the opportunity to work with more clients. You're not necessarily hustling and, sales pitching and things like that. And as valuable as these clients are, a lot of times they don't understand marketing and why we do the things we do. So it's kind of nice to have that agency with the manager, with the client success manager who can be that, buffer of communication and explain things to them and why we might do things and stuff along that. So yeah, I definitely like having the agency more than working directly with the client.
And if you're a company out there listening to this podcast, there's benefits to this too. Um, Going through an agency could be really beneficial because it allows people to specialize in a skill. So, like, we can specialize in running your ads and optimizing and making the most bang for your buck. And the client success manager can be more knowledgeable and more expert and talking to you and explaining to you the trends and, why we make certain decisions. Definitely there's pros and cons for each, but I would lean more onto, going through the agency route for
Yeah,
specialization.
especially if you're just starting out too. It might be nice to kind of go through the agency route. That way you do have, a variety of clients and budgets, and you kind of have someone there to guide you with like product knowledge and assets and things along those lines. So I highly recommend the agency route if you're able to find those types of jobs. And part of finding these jobs is negotiating kind of how you're getting paid. So I know we've kind of touched on that a little bit, but generally, there's two ways that you can get paid with freelance work. The first way is based on an hourly rate. So generally, you'll give them a number. This is how much I want to get paid an hour for my work. Sometimes they'll ask for an idea of how many hours you think you might have to put in, but you're on a strict hourly rate. At the end of the month, you submit your hours, you submit your invoice, and you get paid based off of that. There's also a flat fee where you get paid just a fee for your client. Doesn't matter how many hours you've put in, you know that you're guaranteed this much at the end of the month. Anthony, what is your preference on hourly versus flat fee?
I didn't have a preference before, but now that I'm on a flat rate, I have to say that I really like it. I really like getting paid per client and being able to calculate every week or every month how much money you're making based on the amount of work that you're putting in. But there was a time that I was hourly and I liked it too, but it always left that question mark in my head, wondering like, should I be charging? Like, am I charging too much? Like, what are they gonna think about it? Like, are they gonna say something? Should I ask if this is too much? And I didn't like it because of that. So, as much as you think you're gonna make more money doing hourly, I think it's just best to do the flat rate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan of the flat rate too. I like knowing what I'm going to get at the end of the month. I don't like it to be a surprise. I don't like to have to think, oh, did I put in enough hours? Am I working too fast? Am I working too slow? I just like knowing this is what they expected me. This is what I can expect. And I just go in and I do my best for the client. At the end of the day, it's all about getting results for the client. I don't want to have to worry about am I doing too much or am I doing too little? And, when I think about it in retrospect to my full time job, I am making a lot more an hour than I was at my full time job. Given with the amount of clients that I have right now, it's more of a part time. So I'm not necessarily making the equivalent to my paycheck. But knowing that I'm making more an hour and that I do have the opportunity to grow it, I think is a really good feeling. Anthony, how does it compare to when you were working hourly?
100%. It's a lot more. Like working as a freelancer, you have a lot more flexibility. And like I mentioned earlier, always getting into the habit of calculating your hourly rate every month allows you to set goals for the next month and be faster and more efficient and, make space for new clients. So, and as far as like the rates, as a freelancer, you get to charge more because you also have your overhead, right? You have to work from your home and in most cases and you have expenses to cover and like that allows for the market allows you to charge more per hour. Like in my case, when I started freelancing and I had 4 clients at the time and I was working about 20 hours a week and making the same amount of money I was making at my W-2 job. Um, and the added benefit to that is that not only am I making more money per hour, right, and working less time, I'm also able to deduct expenses from my taxes. And that is also a great benefit, right, from doing freelance work. So Alexis, um, for you, like, have you had to file taxes yet on freelance work?
No, I have not, but that will be coming up for me. I chose the route of hiring an accountant because I am terrible when it comes to finances and understanding laws around that stuff. So I hired an accountant to do it for me. So she's taking care of all of that good stuff. But I do know that there are benefits that you're able to write off. So business expenses. So, for example, if you buy a laptop specifically for business use, you can write that off.
Mhm.
Any softwares you purchase. So, for example, if you're a digital marketer and you want a subscription to Canva, you can write off that subscription as a business expense.
And you can write off all the things as, like the internet bill, electricity, and all the things that you need, to be able to function as your own company. One thing to clarify here, I mean, is that we are not accountants, so we're not experts on this. So like, don't take this as advice. But something that I learned recently from listening to a podcast on this, I'll leave this as a plug here, is the Freelance Friday podcast, and they have an episode called "What Can I Write Off on My Taxes?" I would really suggest that you guys take a listen to that. Something that I learned from it was that, writing something off, some people think it's that you're gonna, whatever the cost of that thing that you're expensing is something that you're gonna literally deduct from your taxes. It actually doesn't work that way. The expense deducts from your income, so it lowers your taxable income. So like you're not saving in taxes the same amount of the cost of whatever you're buying. You're just lowering your taxable income, and then your taxes will be low. Not by the same amount, but by a percentage of it. So just needed to clarify that. But again, we're not experts. So I'll suggest that you guys hire an accountant, listen to podcasts about it, and take it from there.
Yeah, especially if you're looking to make freelancing a pretty big part of your income, I would definitely recommend just hiring an accountant and letting them handle it for you. There's a lot of things that you have to keep in mind, like filing taxes quarterly or estimating your income and things like that. And it's just a lot easier if you don't have experience in that as of yet. So just hire a professional. We are in no way professionals in the financial part of it, the tax part of it, but we definitely will drop some links below to sources that you can use to learn more about the tax benefits or to learn more about how to write stuff off, things like that. So check out our description and we'll leave some shout outs in there for you guys.
Absolutely. And just an advice, just save all your receipts, right, for things, because you don't want to realize that you can expense something and realize too late and you don't have a receipt for it anymore. So definitely save receipts. It can be helpful for you.
Yeah, ties back to what we talked about being organized.
Yeah,
Freelance work, you have to be organized and you have to kind of think ahead of if you're going to need that or not.
100%.
So, Anthony, before we finish up this podcast, what is a final piece of advice you're giving to any digital marketers who may be interested in freelancing?
Definitely think about problems that you have solved, write about them, and think about solutions that you took at the time or other solutions that perhaps now you would tackle things differently. Think about that too and write it down. People hiring for freelance gigs are really interested to know what kind of problem solver you are. And having that ready on the side, written down, will be really handy for you. Another thing is build a portfolio website. Build it. And there's many tools right now. Mine is built on a free platform. It's built on Google Sites. You don't have to do that. You can build it in a WordPress or whatever platform that you want. But definitely build a portfolio website, take screenshots of your work, obviously, minding privacy concerns, obviously, but make your website at your, things that you have accomplished, companies that you've worked for. Talk about your goals, talk about things that you have learned and things that you want to learn. And I think those are like the main two pieces of advice that I would give you right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of those pieces of advice. And then your last piece kind of flows into mine. Mine would be to create your brand. If you're going to be freelancing, make yourself a brand. So you said make a website. I'm saying make an agency name for yourself. Make a professional marketing specific email. Make a profile that you use to manage those ad accounts so they're not tied to your personal one. Just create your overall brand as a marketer and use that to your advantage. Another piece of advice that I would give is to just hustle. Hustle, reach out, use Upwork to the fullest abilities that you can. Make sure that you are interviewing, you're applying to jobs. If you want to make this an actual full time replacement for your current job, you have to hustle to make it work. You're going to lose clients, you're going to lose agencies, and you have to always be looking for more work. Nothing's ever guaranteed at the end of the day. So just be ready to hustle and give it your all. Consistency is key when it comes to a job like this.
Oh my God. Talk about consistency. Yes. And I would say it applies to everything in life, right? Like being consistent to get results. And like, if you one day, like for example, one day I would love to have my own agency, but I know in order for me to get there, I have to do a lot. And like, right now, I cannot do that. I cannot jump into that like I jumped into freelancing. It's something that you have to do step by step, like, right? Like put one foot in front of the other and move to that direction. And right now, it's, getting as much experience as I can with clients and with agencies. And perhaps if you work for an agency and you've been doing something for several months and you got really good to it, perhaps ask what other things you can do for that agency. Can you get another gig from that same agency? Can you like maybe get involved in talking directly to clients? Or perhaps you want to get into the sales part of it, like pitching to new clients and that kind of stuff. So the opportunities, I would say, are almost endless, and just if you want it, just put the effort in, like Alexa said, hustle a lot.
Yeah, and I think that those are great words to leave you guys on. So, with all that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead and drop some comments below. Let us know about some of your favorite tips and tricks for freelancing. Go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, click the bell notification so you get notified anytime we post a new video. If you are listening on one of our podcasts, go ahead, subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with any new episodes that we drop. Leave us a review on our podcast. Let us know how we're doing. And again, let us know any tips and tricks you have for freelancers. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.